Hi guys, thanks for joining me. In this week's video, I want to talk about how best to prepare for a custody assessment because I have a lot of clients who are going through custody assessments over the next few weeks. So a custody assessor is usually a psychologist, a social worker, or a GAL, a guardian ad litem. In a nutshell, it's their job to perform an investigation to make recommendations to the court of what parenting practices would be in the best interests of your children. So these assessments, they make my clients kind of nervous, and that's what I want to deal with today. Preparing well for an assessment will help bring down your nerves. And the video next week, you're also going to see how mindset really matters with a custody assessment. The assessor is going to ask you a lot of questions, so I want you to be ready for them. Often the assessment starts with getting a bit of a history of what your childhood was like. What was the situation in your family? Were your parents together or divorced? So you might, ahead of time, want to take a little walk down memory lane to think about what your childhood was like growing up and what you want to share with the assessor. Did you enjoy school? Did you have a nice family life? Or is there conflict in your family? There's no wrong answers. You just want to be kind of factual without a lot of drama. This is what happened. Another thing that I want you to prepare for are questions about the lineage or chronology of your relationship with your ex. So a lot of my clients like to actually write out a timeline that starts with when they were dating, when that started like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, the engagement period, marriage if there was one, any significant events that occurred during the marriage. Maybe your ex went to rehab at one point during the marriage. It's great if you can put it into a chart or a timeline so it's very fresh in your mind for those questions. Now, the assessor is also going to ask you about your role as a parent to the children. What was your role during the relationship and what's your role since the relationship? So think about it. What are the things that you do with your children? Are you responsible for doctor's appointments? Are you responsible for parent-teacher interviews? Who makes breakfast? Who makes lunch? Who does the homework? Who does the showering? Who does the bedtime routine? It's very helpful if you have in your mind exactly what your role has been with your kids and what your relationship is like with your children. The last two things that I want you to have ready for a custody assessment are probably the two most important things. So take the time and make it into a document on paper. I want you to think about what are the live issues? What are your concerns right now with regard to your children and parenting? Pick out your top 3 to 5 concerns that you have. What is your child struggling with most? What is your safety issue worries? I want those to be very clearly defined in your head so that you make sure that the assessor has this information before the assessment is over. This is crucial information that is needed for them to make decisions and make recommendations of what will be the best parenting practices for your kids. Lastly, your assessor may ask you, what are your goals or what do you hope to achieve out of this process? And I think this is an important exercise to think about ahead of time so you're not caught off guard. What do you want to see happen? Do you want the parenting schedule to be made? Do you want it to be a status quo parent schedule and stay exactly the way it's been? Or do you think it needs to be modified? And why do you think so? Are there certain supports that you want to see in place for your children recommended by the assessor? Do you want to see reunification therapy? Do you want to see any kind of social supports for your children or therapy recommended? Because really a court weighs very heavily on what an assessor recommends. So this is your wonderful opportunity. An assessment is not a test. It's an opportunity for you to do exactly what you do best, which is to advocate for your children.